was something vaguely serendipitous about my discovery of Kuroko no Basuke. Outwardly, it doesn't seem like something that would appeal to me. I mean, I'm not a basketballer, I'm not even an athlete, and I'm not part of this show's target audience. And yet, I found myself thoroughly sucked into Kuroko no Basuke. So why did I enjoy it so much? Why did I become so attached to this show? Why am I sticking with this team when most of what they do is repeatedly play a sport that I have zero aptitude for and little interest in? What about this series appealed to me? I don't really know, and I think I need to figure it out. Okay, so let's strip it back a little bit. What is Kuroko no Basuke? Kuroko no Basuke follows the Seiden High School basketball team. It's a relatively young club because it was only formed the year before. Okay, so we can pretty much assume that it wasn't the subject matter that sucked me into Kuroko no Basuke. The setting of this thing is more often than not training, practice, or games. Now, it's been a long time since I played a game or a match of anything. With this particular show, the setting isn't particularly important. The plot, pretty straightforward. Character A decides they want to be the best at something. Character B decides they're going to support character A in doing that very thing. Aside from that, it's sort of a game of the week, and hopefully continue on in your sporting endeavours. When you sum it up like that, it doesn't seem all that particularly compelling. Kuroko no Basuke is fairly stylistically distinct, what with the figure style, with the very angular faces, lots of angry eyebrows. They use line shading as well as flat shading, which, to be honest, initially kind of was like, you get used to it. I've got my angry eyes on. I didn't immediately take to the visual style. It was something I had to get used to adjust to, before I could really watch what was going on. And the openings and endings were good. The actual soundtrack itself, I mean, it's nice. They do some really good stuff with strings and brass and, you know, general rhythmic, tense, suspense stuff. It does what it needs to. It's a functioning score. It's not a particularly artsy, does something extra kind of score. It's not anything all that special. Given that Kuroko no Basuke follows sports teams, that pretty much guarantees that there's going to be a lot of characters, and a lot of throwaway characters as well. What Kuroko no Basuke does really well is it starts with two very strong protagonists and builds a large supporting cast that are all well developed. Kuroko no Basuke does a really good job of making sure that none of those characters seem unimportant or unnecessary or added for the sake. In being a series that has rivals as opposed to villains, it means that they get much more development than most traditional melodramatic villains would get. They feel much more real, much more tangible. Okay, so we've got a lot of characters and a lot of interpersonal dynamics. That just sounds like a lot to keep track of. Where is the entertainment value? To be honest, for me, a large part of that is the show's sense of humor. It's not a serious show, despite all its angsty, angry eyes people. Ultimately, I think the reason Kuroko no Basuke roped in so many of us was because it was very aware of pacing. It knows when to give you fast-paced, relentless, action-tastic, Seiden, run-and-gun style basketball, and it knows when to draw out those last few seconds so Seiden can scrape in by the skin of their teeth. Kuroko no Basuke is a show that draws you in to its characters and its situation so that you feel it when the pressure is on. And you feel the relief after the fact. There are moments when success feels so much more like relief than celebration. It knows how to amp up the action and make you feel that adrenaline that you feel when the pressure is on, whether you're an athlete or a musician or whatever. And it also knows how to capture those little moments in between. All the stupid traditions and superstitions and clubs are weird things, people. As someone who's spent hours on a bus with eccentrics, those are the moments that I really appreciate. Where you see rivals as real people, and you see a team being a team in those ways that you don't get on the court. That, for me, is ultimately what really resonated with me, I think. It's the stuff that athletic ability regardless, is something that I've experienced. There's plenty to relate to. There's gear bags and buses and performance anxiety and teamwork and failure. Basically, Kuroko no Basuke is about more than athletes. It's about philosophies and teamwork and competition in general. Kuroko no Basuke. It's addictive, it's absurd, and it's loaded with adrenaline. And it's a thumbs up from me. And plus it makes basketball so simple to understand that you don't need to know anything going in. I've got my angry